When I first laid eyes on the latest images of Mercury, I felt a kind of quiet awe. Here was a world so battered and ancient, its surface rough and rugged, almost like the face of our own moon. But somehow it felt even lonelier. This tiny planet, orbiting closest to the sun, had weathered more violence and heat than any other world in our solar system. Yet against all odds, it still spun faithfully around our star, holding tight to its secrets. We often call Mercury small, but I wonder if many people realize just how small it truly is. Mercury's diameter stretches only about 4,800 kilometers. To put that into perspective, some of the largest moons in our solar system, like Ganymede around Jupiter and Titan around Saturn, are even larger. Imagine that, a planet, the first planet from the sun, smaller than moons that simply orbit giant planets. When I think about Mercury in that way, it almost feels wrong to call it a planet. But nature, it seems, does not always follow human rules. Mercury's orbit is another story entirely. Unlike the nearly perfect circles we might expect, Mercury moves in a dramatically stretched oval around the sun. In the language of astronomy, we call this an eccentric orbit. But Mercury's orbit is not just eccentric. It is the most eccentric of all the planets. When it swings close to the sun, it bathes in an overwhelming furnace of radiation. When it drifts away to its farthest point, it cools by comparison, though never truly escaping the sun's grasp. One of the most fascinating things about Mercury's orbit is how it twists over time. As it circles the sun, the very shape and orientation of its path slowly shift. Early astronomers noticed this and struggled to explain it. They thought maybe the gravitational pull of Jupiter or Earth was tugging on Mercury just enough to cause this gentle precession. But even after accounting for all those forces, a tiny discrepancy remained. It was as if something unseen was nudging Mercury along. For a while, people imagined there might be another hidden planet closer to the sun than Mercury itself. They even gave it a name, Vulcan, after the Roman god of fire and forge. But no Vulcan was ever found. The mystery lingered, whispering from the heart of the solar system. Then a man named Albert Einstein changed everything. With his theory of general relativity, he showed that massive objects like the sun could warp the fabric of space and time itself. Mercury's strange orbit was not a mystery after all. It was a natural result of moving through the curved space around our star. This tiny planet, so often overlooked, had become the first proof that space and time were not as simple as they seemed. Mercury's movement is full of surprises. A year on Mercury, its full journey around the sun, takes only 88 Earth days. Yet, a single day on Mercury, from one sunrise to the next, stretches across almost 60 Earth days. This means that the sun rises very slowly, creeps across the sky, and lingers overhead for weeks before setting. And because of the peculiar way Mercury spins near its closest approach to the sun appears to stop moving altogether in the sky. For a moment, the sun seems to hesitate, almost unsure of which way to go. Then it reverses, drifting slightly backward before resuming its slow westward march. I imagine standing there on that airless, silent surface, watching the sun dance its strange and slow ballet. Seeing Mercury from Earth is difficult. It stays close to the sun in the sky, often lost in the glare of dawn or dusk. But sometimes, if you are lucky, you can watch Mercury pass directly in front of the sun. Through a telescope fitted with special filters, Mercury appears as a tiny black dot, making its way across the bright solar disk. It is a humbling sight, a reminder of how small and swift this little world truly is. Despite its proximity to the sun, Mercury is not completely barren. It has a whisper-thin exosphere made mostly of atoms like sodium and potassium. Unlike a true atmosphere, this exosphere is so tenuous that its particles rarely collide. They are more like drifting ghosts clinging faintly to the planet before escaping into space. The first spacecraft to visit Mercury was Mariner 10. It gave us our first close-up views of this scarred and ancient land. Later came Messenger, which mapped the entire surface with incredible detail. Thanks to these missions, We know that Mercury is covered in craters, ridges, and vast ancient plains, shaped by billions of years of bombardment and volcanic activity. Now, a new mission called Bepi Colombo, a collaboration between Europe and Japan, is on its way to Mercury. It promises to uncover even more of the planet's secrets, sending back clearer images and deeper measurements than ever before. But what lies beneath Mercury's battered surface is perhaps even more astonishing. Mercury has an enormous metallic core, proportionally far larger than Earth's. While Earth's core makes up a modest part of its volume, Mercury's core dominates the planet. It is so large that if you removed Mercury's outer rocky shell, the core would be nearly the size of Earth's moon. Scientists believe that long ago, Mercury may have been a much larger planet. In the chaos of the early solar system, it might have suffered a catastrophic collision with another large body, blasting away much of its outer layers and leaving behind the dense iron heart we see today. It is a haunting thought. Mercury, the smallest planet now, may once have been something grander, cruelly reduced by a cosmic accident. The Caloris Basin, one of the largest impact craters in the solar system, tells part of that story. It spans over 1,500 kilometers across Mercury's surface. On the exact opposite side of the planet from this basin lies a region of chaotic terrain, jumbled and torn by the shock waves that raced through the planet during the impact. Standing on Mercury, you would see towering cliffs called scarps, created as the planet's interior cooled and shrank, folding the surface like the skin of a drying apple. Mercury is still shrinking today, ever so slowly. Its surface bears the scars of this slow contraction, with thousands of small scarps crisscrossing the landscape. Astronomers estimate that Mercury's diameter has shrunk by about 7 kilometers since it first formed. It is as if the planet is curling inward, growing smaller with age, a celestial body aging quietly in the intense heat of the sun. Despite its battered and shrinking nature, Mercury is a planet of surprising resilience. It holds on to a magnetic field, though much weaker than Earth's, and shows signs of past volcanic activity. Its surface, while ancient, is not entirely dead. Some areas hint at geologically recent shifts and movements, suggesting that Mercury, though small and seemingly still, is not finished evolving. There is something poetic about Mercury. It is a world caught between fire and void, shaped by violence, humbled by time, yet still enduring. It reminds me that even the smallest places can hold the deepest stories. Every crater, every ridge, every scar on its surface speaks of battles fought and survived across unimaginable spans of time. And there is one more touch of poetry. The craters on Mercury are named not after scientists or warriors, but after artists, musicians, and writers. Names like Beethoven, Shakespeare, and Picasso are etched into its dusty plains. It is as if humanity, in naming these scars, reached out with a tender hand to honor the beauty and creativity that we too carry within us. I often wonder what it would feel like to stand on Mercury, to feel the brutal heat of the sun during its long day, to see the stars glimmering against the inky blackness of space, unfiltered by atmosphere, to watch the strange dance of the sun as it hesitates and drifts in the sky. It would be a lonely experience, perhaps, but also a deeply moving one. As we continue to explore Mercury through missions like Bepi Colombo, we are not just studying a planet. We are listening to a whisper carried across the solar winds, a whisper of resilience, survival, and mystery. Mercury has waited billions of years for us to come close enough to hear its story. And now at last we are beginning to listen. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The universe is vast, but even the smallest worlds have their voices. Sometimes it is the quietest voices that have the most to tell.